An entire congressional district completely erased in just 8 days. What we're looking at today in this explainer is essentially a masterclass in geographic surgery, a move that just eliminated a 50-year-old voting bloc in Tennessee. We're going to see exactly how a mapmaker's pen managed to change an entire state's political landscape, literally overnight.
And critics of this move are pointing out something deeply unsettling. They're arguing that lawmakers didn't just tweak a map here. They completely rewrote the rules of the game to make sure the outcome was locked in before a single ballot was even cast. You really have to ask yourself, if a legislature can just decide mid-decade to entirely dissolve a district, is any district actually safe anymore? The fundamental rules of representation are shifting under our feet.
But honestly, the speed of this is what's truly staggering. They didn't wait around for the next census. No. Just 6 days after a major Supreme Court ruling, a special session is called. 2 days after that, the new map is law. That is an 8-day window to completely rewrite a state's political geography. 8 days. Before the public could even fully grasp what was happening, the map was done. It was a tactical strike executed with incredible precision. So how does something like this happen so fast? The trigger was the Supreme Court's Louisiana v. Callais ruling. This decision effectively gutted Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. Before, you had protections. Now, to strike down a map, you have to prove explicit, intentional racial discrimination, which is a massive hurdle in court. What this really did was hand mapmakers a powerful legal shield. It signaled that you can draw maps purely for partisan advantage, even if minority representation is wiped out as collateral damage. And man, did that legal shield create an immediate opening. Former President Donald Trump personally urged Tennessee Governor Bill Lee to capitalize on this, to, quote, correct the unconstitutional flaw. The directive from the top of the GOP was crystal clear. Use this brand new legal cover to secure a 9-0 Republican congressional delegation. They saw a window of opportunity and they took it. There was just one roadblock. Since 1972, Tennessee law actually banned mid-decade redistricting. You couldn't just do this on a whim. So the legislature passed a highly surgical series of bills to bypass their own rules. First, they simply repealed that decades-old safeguard. Then they reopened candidate qualifying so politicians could shuffle around into these newly drawn districts. They dismantled their own legal guardrails just to make this unprecedented move legally sound. The geographic reality of what happened next is stark. For decades, the 9th District was a compact, urban seat covering the majority black city of Memphis. It was a clear, distinct community of interest. But what unfolded is a textbook example of what political analysts call scientific cracking. They didn't just defeat the district at the ballot box. They dissected the city itself. They took this tight urban center and turned it into a sprawling 200-mile snake. It now stretches all the way from South Memphis deep into the rural suburbs of Nashville. Just think about that for a second. You have an urban voter whose day-to-day life is all about city transit or affordable housing, and suddenly they're grouped with voters 200 miles away in completely different rural environments. The whole concept of a shared community is totally gone. This is where the precise architecture of the map reveals itself. The urban, majority block population of Memphis wasn't just absorbed into one new area. It was fractured, sliced up almost equally across 3 entirely different rural-dominated districts. By splitting this highly concentrated voting block 3 ways, mapmakers mathematically guarantee that these voters can never pool enough support to elect a representative of their choice. And there is another side to that coin. While black voters were systematically fragmented, the mapmakers packed 72% of white Democrats into just one single district, the 8th. That is not a random population shift. It's incredibly calculated. By isolating white Democrats and diluting black voters, they managed to neutralize both groups at the exact same time. The cold hard math really tells the whole story here. By pairing urban Memphis voters with rural residents hundreds of miles away, the brand new 9th District carries an insurmountable plus 33% partisan tilt toward the GOP. A Democratic win is now mathematically impossible. It guarantees a 9-0 Republican sweep across the state. The map literally dictates the winner long before the campaigns even start. If you follow the politics of this region, you might realize this actually builds on a blueprint from 2022. Back then, lawmakers executed the Nashville split, cracking the capital city to flip a seat. Well, now they've perfected it. The 5th District stretches all the way from the Nashville suburbs to downtown Memphis. By bridging 2 major cities with vast rural space in between, any lingering urban Democratic threat in the state is completely neutralized.
As you can imagine, the reaction on the ground was explosive. During the special session, protesters literally filled the Capitol, chanting "shame," until state troopers cleared the room. Democratic lawmakers walked out in protest, calling it mob rule. And figures like Martin Luther King III warned that dismantling his father's civil rights legacy like this is a terrifying step backward toward Jim Crow-era disenfranchisement. The immediate counteroffensive came from the NAACP. They've launched a lawsuit arguing this map violates the state constitution's protections for equal rights. But here is the stark reality. Under that new Supreme Court standard we talked about, proving intentional racial discrimination is incredibly difficult. Mapmakers can simply argue they were aiming for partisan advantage. And under the new rules, that defense works in court.
Which brings us to the most crucial takeaway of this entire explainer. Tennessee is not an isolated incident. It was a beta test, and a highly successful one. The speed of this map redraw proved that the new legal shields actually hold up. Because of that, we are now watching a massive, coordinated regional wave sweeping across the map. The dominoes are already falling. Right now, Alabama is working to revert to an old map to eliminate a court-ordered district. Louisiana postponed its congressional primaries to consolidate a 5-1 Republican map. In South Carolina, they are targeting Jim Clyburn's district to create a 7-0 GOP delegation right before the midterms. They are all executing the exact same mid-decade playbook that Tennessee just perfected. So this forces us to look at the very foundation of how we choose our government. If a legislative majority can wake up, read a court ruling, and within 8 days completely dilute an entire voting bloc to secure power, what is the actual weight of a single vote? Is a map fair simply because it reflects the majority party of a state? Or is it a fundamental violation of democracy to intentionally leave a massive portion of the population without a single representative who shares their values?
An investment in knowledge pays the best interest, so why not invest in this channel? Click like and subscribe for more.